Yes.
Munson the Geeza. Munson the Geeza. Reporting from the scene. Munson the Geeza. News in every right.
My goodness, it's great to be here. Tony! Tony.
Hello.
You're live on Munson the Geeza. Have you had your medication?
Hang on, something's gone
Your
wrong with
green
the world.
screen is snagged. It's like having your knickers tucked in the back of your skirt, mate, or vice versa.
Toilet paper.
Terms. Yes, it's like having a bit of toilet paper coming out the bottom of your trouser leg, isn't it? A teacher's nightmare, which you would know about.
I did it once, and the time that it happened to me, I was dressed as Santa.
Oh, well, you could have got away with it, right? It's just a little bit of snow.
Well, luckily, one of my colleagues spotted it. Yeah, before I went out in front of 1,000 parents.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the wrong day for it to happen, but luckily, one of my colleagues caught me out. Yeah,
Had your back, literally.
I literally had my backside. Yeah,
yeah. How are you? What's going on?
Yeah, it's quite easy to happen to me because I have a very, very hairy ass.
All right, thank you. Too much information. Let's move on. Talking of hairy asses, have you seen this in the Portugal news today?
I haven't.
I did tag you. I wondered if you might like to enter the fray with this. They're very, very cheeky. Good afternoon, by the way. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
For those of you who are with us.
Hello, Carl. Yes. Hello.
What's up with you? Let us know in the chat. Now,
whatever you may think about Trump, he's doing what he said he would do: run America's business. I think a lot of what he's doing is what he ran on.
I did think of you when I saw this, and I also thought, that's a bit of mischief from the Portugal news popping that on the Facebook timeline today. Yeah. And with that first little subtitle there, and I withdrew with my popcorn to see what would happen, and it's quite predictable. The usual retorts about a country's not a business, he's not a successful businessman, he bankrupted everything else. Should we have a little read through it? Do you want to scoff and roll your eyes a little bit more as I read through?
Go on.
What I can't believe, Paul Luckman, I think, is he not the editor, or was he once the owner of the Portugal news? That's quite bold of him to do that. I'm gonna have to
well, people see which way the wind's blowing, don't they?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, even CNN is showing polls now that show that most Americans love what Trump's doing.
Okay,
which is what really matters in the end in a democracy,
right?
Which
the end in the democracy.
Well, what I've said before is the reason Trump. I know this also grinds people's gears, but Trump plays 4D chess. How he speaks and how he acts, it's impossible for him not to be intelligent. It's impossible.
Really?
Of course it is. Otherwise, people would just take his money. Do you know what I mean? It's impossible. He's obviously a highly intelligent guy, and he knows exactly how he speaks.
Yeah.
But he's basically pushed like the Democrats and that side of politics into a complete corner now.
Yeah.
Where they're arguing, they're literally screaming that men should be allowed in women's bathrooms. They're screaming that abortion should be allowed right up until the point of birth. They're screaming that the government shouldn't be audited. They're screaming that it's crazy. The left,
Oh,
and I am calling them the left. I am calling them the left. I'm over it now.
I've had enough of their nonsense.
They're the left, yeah.
I think that's what's happened to Paul Luckman as well. He is indeed the publisher of the Portugal news, and this will not have endeared him to many, but you and he are past such concerns by the sound of it. I'll read a little bit more as by way of a warm-up. This is a soft entry into the topic today. We are not the same, which is something I want to put. I've got mixed feelings, and I feel the need to talk about the subject of we are not the same and the clash of cultures. I'm going to refer to it as at the moment. Of a number of immigrants who are coming to Portugal who may not share the same ideals or standards of behavior.
Oh, the Japanese immigrants are you talking about?
That lot, yeah, they're all
Japanese, the ones from Japan.
Yes, exactly.
Oh
Wailing,
my God. Obviously them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so more on that to come, and it's not the Japanese. I don't know any
not.
Japanese immigrants
Of course, it's
not. That was a kind of double joke then, wasn't it? It was like it was a joke, but it was also a point as well.
Let me get to the topic. I will speak about this again. It's another leftist kind of communist idea that everyone and every culture is, what do they call it? Cultural relativism.
Yeah, but I would like to broaden it a bit, because I do want to lift it out of the lightning rod scenario. And that's the problem, isn't it? So many things, the right says you can't talk about this when clearly you can. You can't say what you want to say when you can. What I want to do is try and lift the conversation beyond that into the middle, not the 10% to the left or to the right, but where most people live and think, or have something to contribute, but are really worried about being dragged to one end or the other. And that's what I think is what we do here, or what we endeavor to do. It doesn't always work out, but still we come back every week, don't we, and attempt to discuss things without it getting dragged to the far left or right poles, which is a very difficult tightrope to walk, if I may mix my metaphors. Anyway, by way of a warm-up, some foreplay here with Donald Trump. I'm sorry if that's an appalling image to you. Trump, it's not for everybody. Trump is certainly not a politician, but he never said otherwise. All through his campaign, he made it clear. Did you ghostwrite this for Paul Luckman? What he would do, he made it clear he would surround himself with like-minded people, which most politicians do. He was clear the way.
Not only that, he told you who he was going to surround himself with. That's the other point. You don't even have to be vague like that. Like, people are going, oh, why Musk? What? He literally showed you the people he was going to surround himself with.
All right.
And they elected him.
All right. He was clear the way he wanted to run America. You may not agree with him, but the American people voted for him knowing what his policies were. That's democracy. He made some misleading claims, such as he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours of being elected. Yeah, that hasn't worked out well, does it? Trump believed that President Putin was his friend and would do almost whatever he asked. But really, Putin didn't see it that way. Donald Trump's special envoy, often called his fixer, was made to wait 8 hours to meet the Russian president and left Moscow a few hours later, seemingly as soon as the talks ended. Sounds like it didn't go terribly well. Worse, according to press reports, Putin was an hour late for his Tuesday call with Trump, all power play, and seemingly unbothered by the fact that he kept the American president waiting. The Russian leader was seen smirking and laughing off warnings about his tardiness as he met with members of the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs Congress ahead of the call. Putin was making a point, and not very subtly. The simple reality may well be that Putin isn't concerned about America as long as they don't get involved. Putin has no interest in occupying America. There is, I hadn't thought of that, there is much more low-hanging fruit on his doorstep. Oh, okay. It's simply business then, and this goes into, I think, the point being made that Trump is running the country like a business. Do you want me to share more with you, or did you want to comment at that point, Tony?
I agree pretty much with everything he said.
Yeah. Okay.
So
all right. Well, let's continue then.
I mean, his concerns about, like, I think calling out. Well, I think what a balanced person will do is call out the bad and point out the good.
Robin Hood.
That's what he seems to be doing, isn't it? He's saying the good points, or maybe it's not saying good.
Oh, the writer here, Paul Luckman. Yeah. It's clear that major corporate companies were confident that Trump's policies, it's missing an apostrophe there. Policies would would benefit them, but the stock markets, no apostrophe, are allow putting a lot of doubt on this. Trump made it clear from the outset. I'm reading the words of Paul Luckman, publisher of the Portugal News, in the Portugal News today. And also, I've put the link here. What would be really good fun is if you go to the link and leave a comment, because I am so surprised there's only one comment on this thread so far. So I'll encourage you to add a comment, and maybe we'll do that live on the show, shall we, Tony?
On Facebook, is it, or in the news?
In the Portugal News itself, the paper I write for, The Resident, doesn't have comments. And when you look at the comments on the on the Portugal News, you can understand why. Sean in Lisbon has responded already to that, and we'll read his comment a little bit later. But
I can predict it. Well, I'm Sean from Lisbon, and I watch CNN in the cafe every day. Yeah. Therefore, Orange Man bad, Nazi salute, Russia, Putin's pet.
Anything else?
I don't know. I usually stop reading after that.
Okay, fair enough. Right. So back to the piece then. Okay, about the companies. Right now, many Americans are showing their disapproval of what Musk is doing, but they shouldn't be surprised. It was clear from the outset that Musk was going to be Trump's, again, missing an apostrophe, right-hand man. In Europe, it should... I'll stop now. In Europe, Tesla sales slumped 40% as Elon Musk backlash grows. I think that's meant to be a subtitle. It doesn't even make sense. According to Reuters, the S&P 500 has given up all gains recorded since Trump's November 5th election and is down nearly 3% as Trump pushes ahead on tariffs. Again, it's important to stress that Trump made it clear that he loves tariffs, obsessed with, as he is with tariffs. Trump calls tariffs the greatest thing ever invented and the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're perfect tariffs.
It's so beautiful. This is going to hurt Europe and will certainly hurt Portugal. However, I hear good news from the wine industry. It's going to be a good year for wine lovers in Portugal with US tariffs on wine. To what level, we don't know yet, as at the time of writing, Trump has not revealed the level of tariffs and who will be charged most. Europe, Canada, Mexico, and China will, of course, strike back. Those empires striking back. It will be a trade war, but Trump says it's going to work. The world stock markets, not politicians, will reveal whether this is true or not. Trump's attitude towards Europe. So bring it closer to home here. And the concerns. It's been a team-building exercise for Europe, hasn't it? And it's really helped the EU characters, I think, this whole Trump thing. He's not alone in thinking America first. Back in the 60s, President Lyndon B. Johnson spoke out very clearly that he thought the UK was asking too much of America. Okay, but America was asking quite a lot of the UK with its repayments that only stopped from the Second World War a few years ago. He stated his thoughts more clearly than that. But the upshot was that he didn't think the UK should see America as their bankers. Trump's views, is that a thing now that you don't have to put an apostrophe in when you say Trump's views? Because they are glaringly missing to me from this article. And perhaps they have some reason. Europe has developed a dependence on America, not just financially, but especially NATO, and Europe has allowed their financial contributions to NATO to fall back, relying on America to supply more than their fair share. I think we know all about this stuff, don't we? And it goes on to talk about, in 1964, President Johnson asked the Wilson government to deploy British troops to Vietnam, and Wilson refused. That's interesting, isn't it? The thought of that. And Wilson said no at the time. Make America great again. Donald Trump doesn't see things that way. For him, America is a business proposition, not the world's policeman. If there is a profit to be made for America, he'll go for it. Otherwise, no. Again, I must stress, he's never made any secret of how he sees things. Trump's business view is that in any negotiation, one wins and one loses. For him, the idea of finding a middle ground where both sides gain isn't in his playbook. Well, I think that's a sentiment you would agree with. And finally, and the last couple of paragraphs, is Donald Trump a good businessman? Because this is always what the left say, isn't it? Yeah, he's got less money than he started out with, and he's bankrupted this business and that business. So even if he is running it as a business, he's not a very good businessman. If Trump is going to run America as a business, how good is he at business? Should be a question mark there. I think Paul's just said, give me the logins to the website. I've got an article. I'm going to put it on. Editors, you find out sometimes, don't you, that editors are really important. Opinions vary, but Jonathan Lipson, Harold E. Cohn professor in the Beasley School of Law, do you know him, Tony?
No.
And a noted expert on bankruptcies, reported Donald Trump's casinos in Atlantic City lost more jobs and money than competitors' casinos, man, while also going through more bankruptcies than any other major business in America. But the American public knew all this. They know about his business record, but they decided that he was the right person to make America great again. None of his policies have been made secret, with few exceptions. Trump will do what he said he will do. Only time will tell if this brings the wealth and prosperity that the majority of Americans want. Europe doesn't think so, but the leadership of America isn't for them to decide on. Only time will tell. It's kind of keep your nose out, Europe.
I think you could also argue, just for hi Maria, how you doing? How you doing? Hello JMC, hello Carlos, and hello Agrippa Maxientios.
What we do in life echoes through eternity.
Yeah.
Maxentius.
Well, I would argue, my argument would Agrippa Maxentius, that it's quite evident in Portugal that Portugal isn't run like a business. And there are some, I would say there are some good points about that. But on the other hand, as someone who's trying to run a business here, I would actually call Portugal anti-business. So, you know, there's that.
It does feel a little bit anti-enterprise sometimes.
That's why a lot of young people don't bother trying and they bugger off to other countries. So, you know, if you can do that, you can say, oh, well, I don't want my country run like a business. I want, you know, to swan off and drink wine at 2 PM and all that kind of stuff.
Swan off and drink wine in the afternoon.
Yeah, I want to waste money.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So exactly. So yeah, I get why the Portuguese do like that, but on the other hand, it's maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe there's a middle ground.
Which is what we attempt to discover every Monday evening.
Well, funnily enough, Agrippa, this is something that I speak to my sons about, which is something I disagree with, this left, right polarity. Quite often you hear these straw men where it's like, you know, the right will be going, oh, you want to be micromanaged by the government. And the left will be going, oh, who do you think, you know, clears the snow? I know we don't have that in Portugal, but, you know, that's what I saw. Who do you think clears the snow off the street? The fact is nobody wants no government. And nobody wants complete control by government. Most of us in the West and in functional democracies want a mixed system, don't we?
So are you saying we either have no government or snow government?
But you get me. This is a debate often the left and the right have that's full of straw men. And the reality is that the left, whoever they are, tend to want a bit more government, and the right tend to want smaller government.
Yes, which arises, as I've always said, from their traumatic responses to their upbringing. However, that's not what we're talking about. Can I suggest you put your microphone in the middle of your screen? Yeah, you move the mic, and then you don't have to move. There you go. That's perfect. All right, that's perfect. Thank you. Down a bit. There you go. Great. Thank you. No, stop it. He's doing this on purpose now. Right. JMC, I like this. The thing is, Portugal will find a way, even in the most adverse conditions. We always do. Now, another issue for Portugal, I want to talk about immigration in just a moment, but I will, let's go see if Tony was right about the comment that's been left at the bottom of this Donald Trump article from Paul Luckman in the Portugal news today. Resident in Portugal for 50 years, Paul Luckman, privileged to have seen firsthand Portugal progress from a dictatorship into a stable democracy. Excellent, thank you, Paul. Publisher of the Portugal News.
Stable democracy. They've had like 4 PMs since I've been here. I've only been here for 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the UK's been worse on that front. But
yes, right, exactly. Yeah, I think we do have to qualify democracy and see it as a relative matter. Nonsense, says Sean in Lisbon. He's not running it like a business. He's running it like an organized crime family. Blackmailing, a bit more elevated than you were saying there, Orange Man Bad, but the same sort of sentiment, I think. Blackmailing universities like Columbia, shaking down law firms like Paul Weiss, and making people disappear in the middle of the night. That's not business, that's the mafia. Businesses want free trade, not tariffs. Businesses don't want their labor to be scared to show up for work. Businesses know they need partners, so they cooperate with their customers. Businesses know they don't raise capital by tanking the stock market. Businesses behave reliably so people know what to expect, not haphazardly. Trump's behavior is not that of a CEO, it's that of a clown. He's had 4 hotels and a casino go bankrupt. How stupid does one have to be to have a casino go bankrupt? And last 2 words, come on! I think, or come on, depending on how angry Sean was when he was writing that. That's a fair response, I think. Not quite the rabid one that you were portraying. But I do get it. I mean, people do behave quite in the stereotypes where you were describing there. More so on X, I think, than probably in the Portugal news comments. But give it time. If you want to comment yourself, and we can read your comment live on the Portugal news, I'm going to put the link to that into the chat if you want to make a comment. I thought there'll be loads on there. Maybe they've shut comments. I don't know. I'll never forget.
The sun's out, isn't it? The sun's out. I mean, you have a look at tonight.
Oh yeah, okay.
The sun's still out now, so you know.
I find that really comforting. The fact that people, when it was peeing down for weeks and months on end, we were inside being grumpy, and we now couldn't care about Trump.
Same as COVID. Same as COVID. I think I said before on the show when I went to see my friend John, who's been like my lifelong friend, you know. When we were in England, and I saw him during COVID, and I said to him, "Do you want to know a funny thing? Is when I think back along our friendship, I can't ever remember having a discussion with you that had anything about politics in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever known what way he votes. I could
That's
probably
amazing,
guess,
isn't it?
but
didn't need
I don't know what his views are on immigration. I do now.
Yeah.
I don't know what his views are on vaccines. I do now. I don't know what his views are on this, that, the other.
Interesting? Isn't that interesting? We were drawn out, weren't we? Like, like a social leech. It drew out all of this pus from people. My goodness. Right. Agrippa Maxentius, enjoying your participation. Thank you very much. 100% agree. Both sides really have more in common than they realize. And I'm not being cliche in saying that. For instance, I think both the left and the right are suspicious of large power groups, corporations, governments, etc. I'll never forget asking my buddy Gil, why don't we have a mafia like other southern EU countries? He goes, we do, Agrippa, it's the government. We do have the best mafia in Europe. Very good. The most refined and respectful, possibly, and smartly dressed, perhaps, there. And you think the middle ground as well, Agrippa. Excellent comments this evening. I think there is a middle ground, for instance, US post. That is seen as a golden age, isn't it, in the US post World War II? Very interesting. But could every country in the world be enjoying that? Or did the US enjoy that at the expense of others? I wonder. Some think that. Okay. The other issue, if that didn't get you going, talking about Trump, this will. And I hesitate because this is a topic that I think you have fairly straightforward views on. There is I've got a little journey to share with you. I think I have had a concern from both sides of the pulpit, or however you might describe it. People saying there's going to be an Islamic takeover of Portugal. We're creating a problem from within by welcoming people who do not share a culture with us. And you see quite racist, let's call them what they are, at some ends of it, some sort of just straightforward racist rants about that, which makes it difficult for other people to have a sensible conversation about quality immigration. But it would appear to be on the agenda now. And how it's, how a lot of these things happen, I suppose, is how it starts to make sense to you when it arrives on your doorstep. Now, so I'm hearing a few different things that are concerning me. I saw a report of an elderly somebody connected with agriculture, 70-year-old guy got stabbed by an Asian assailant. I think a week or two ago in Obidos. So it's on my doorstep, typical in it, my backyard. So now I'm more bothered about it than I was before. And in Caldas last night, I think this was yesterday. Before that, there was an interesting piece in The Resident about 5,000 Muslims descend on Alameda for the end of Ramadan, and quite an extraordinary picture. Early this morning in Lisbon's Alameda, Portugal has reportedly already surpassed 100,000 Muslims. Lisbon has had an unusual Sunday of celebrations. First up, early morning, was the arrival of around 5,000 Muslims dressed in full costume, which I think is a quaint turn of phrase.
Pajamas.
Dressed in full costume in Alameda to celebrate the end of Ramadan. Eid al-Fitr, the celebration that marks the end of Islamic holy month, which for 30 days requires fasting between dawn and dusk, begins with a community prayer held in mosques or open spaces, bringing the whole community together. Hence why there might be 5,000 Muslims in one place. In Lisbon, where an estimated 15,000 Muslims live, prayers were planned for Praça do Martim Moniz and Alameda, in addition to the usual prayers at the central mosque. And they Natasha Don compares and contrasts this to the St. Patrick's Day celebration, which is a bit different, isn't it? I mean, they're both cultural celebrations in a sense, aren't they? And they're both religion based, but I think they have different hobbies or interests that the activities revolve around. In stark contrast, a few hours later, the city hosted celebrations for St. Patrick's Day, even though the date fell 2 weeks ago. Thousands of people marched down the Avenida de Liberdade to the sound of bagpipes played by Portuguese and Spanish bands. This was the second celebration of St. Patrick's Day in the capital, organised by the Guinness brewery giant. Now, I'll own this. Then on my doorstep yesterday, I see a social media post, and the poster describes, I think he's referring to a rather large Asian influx of young men in Caldas de Rainha. And this is what happened, literally kicked off last night. Now, when it comes to the street you recognize, it just kind of changes the game a little bit. So I was very concerned when I saw that. And it brought up for me I suppose, the ongoing debate of how it might be that there is an influx of people who don't share the same culture, who are quite a dominant presence in parts of cities where they find themselves. And that's a sort of outbreak of violence that I really don't want to see here, and that I hope there wasn't a copper to be seen there, and that might be because it was the last thing they were expecting in a provincial town in Portugal, and I hope that that's met with quite a severe pushback as a completely unacceptable behavior on our streets, in the same way that it would be if it was football fans, and in the same way as it should be if it was in Albufeira and it was a stag party of people behaving inappropriately and should get rounded up and dealt with by the police. And this happened last night. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it is prompting a conversation I want to open up. Is when people say we are not the same, that there are two cultures being, I suppose, essentially forced by immigration policy to live side by side in a way that they don't necessarily want to, are we creating a social time bomb for ourselves? And I know you have views on this, Tony.
Well, obviously, you can just see it in the other countries where it's been going on longer.
Okay, should we end the conversation there?
Well, I don't understand how it is evident. I mean, look at Ireland, look at Germany, look at Sweden, look at the UK.
Right.
That's what happens if you don't control
let me tease out your view then. So there are a number of views on this.
I'm not a cultural relativist, Kyle. I've told you this before. I don't believe that all cultures are the same, and I don't care. I don't care because I don't think culture is race. I'm not interested in the EU and the UN's ever expanding definition of what racism is. To me, racism is discriminating against people based on the color of their skin or their ethnicity. Right. I'm not buying including nationalities and culture and stuff like that, because everyone knows perfectly well that these things don't occur after a big influx of Japanese people.
Yes, which was the point you made earlier on.
I'll give you.
There are no big influxes of Japanese people anywhere, are there?
Well, this is the kind of argument people will say. Oh, you see these things because there's more of these people, and I say, well, okay, well, I know how to stop it. Is stop them all.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if British people kept on going to Hungary, just to pick a random country, and kept on getting drunk and causing trouble, and they said, right, we're going to ban Brits. That might annoy me if I wanted to go to Hungary, but I would understand it.
Yeah.
I could give you. Let me give you a counter version to see if you can think this through. See if you can think this through. Right. When I lived in Hong Kong, I quite often had teachers say to me, "Right now, Hong Kong's got one of the, even though it's a bit of a hothouse when it comes to education, it's got one of the highest rated education systems in the world for like going to university and getting good grades, everything like that, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes my teacher colleagues will ask me, "Oh, don't you want your children to go to school in England?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Because in my head, I'm imagining like Totteridge Primary School and Micklefield comp. You know what I mean? That's what I'm imagining.
Yes,
I'm thinking, yeah.
Primers. Yes.
But what occurred to me was they because Hong Kong does have strict immigration laws. Okay, it's very, very difficult to become an asylum seeker in Hong Kong. Not impossible.
Yeah.
But if you enter illegally, you're out. You're banged up. They have a jail. If you come in illegally, you go to they have a jail for illegal immigrants. Then you can wait there and while you apply for asylum.
Yeah.
It's a jail. It's a jail, and I know it's there because
a holiday camp.
It was quite near. It was quite near where I understand that it's not as rough as some of the prisons in Hong Kong, which apparently are very, very hard. But it's still you're locked in, and you can't get out and all that sort of thing. So like they can't escape from there. Yes. So that's what you got go if you go there. Now, what I realized after a while was Hong Kong is pretty homogenous. Most people are Chinese, but there are other ethnic groups there. There are obviously the filth, the failed in London, try Hong Kong crowd, who are mostly mostly white.
That is an acronym for people who live in Hong Kong.
And you
failed in London, try Hong Kong.
You got the Indian tech bros.
Yeah.
You've got there was some Pakistani people. There is a big mosque in Mongkok. There's all religions there. Mongkok. God, you're like a child.
Stop it.
Munson.
Did you do that on purpose? Just as I was drinking?
Just as you got the water in your mouth, I went, cock.
Yes, I know. You've done that to me and to Agrippa tonight, who liked your comment about Japanese people.
Now then, Jackie. But what I realized was because of the visa rules in Hong Kong, to be there means you're at the very least a graduate of university. Otherwise, you can't get in. Yeah. So that's one of the rules. If you want to go work in Hong Kong, you have to be a graduate. You can't have a criminal record.
They want good quality people, and these are the criteria by which they judge.
They want good quality people, and they don't care where you're from. So you could be so. For example, there is quite a lot of racism there against Filipino people who most of the Filipino people in Hong Kong are maids, right?
Yeah,
but they're not all. So, and this has been an argument that sometimes happens in Hong Kong, is if you're from the Philippines and you're an engineer, you could go there and you will be an engineer. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
They don't care.
It's almost like the American dream, isn't it? It's similar to the American spirit of immigration originally, or what
I realized, and people might find this amusing and understand the point, is what I realized is that the only contact Hong Kong people have with, I'm going to say Western people, and everyone probably knows what I mean. I don't mean white.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of mean
the Western world.
The Western world. So I'm even including countries here that might not be first world, but where the people have had, because even in the third world, there are people who are having a first world experience, right?
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? They're well spoken, they're well educated and well read, right? And professional people. So what I realized is, the civilized world is a better way to put it, Agrippa, I think, because then I'm not excluding the third world, right?
Yeah.
And what I realized is that Hong Kong people don't know about, for example, chavs. They don't know about chavs.
And what do you mean by that for the purposes of this conversation?
Well, in England, a chav is like he's this kind of kid. He's probably unemployed. They wear like a uniform of Adidas, and I'll just check myself because I usually
an athlete.
I wear a bit of Adidas.
Describing an athlete at the moment, so you might.
Yeah, that's the problem. They dress in kind of athletic clothes, but they drink, smoke.
Agrippa's hilarious. Okay.
Yeah, but a UK, like, not when you say gangster, don't imagine professional. This is the kind of person that'll like nick your phone.
The sort of person that Hong Kong doesn't want. Should we say that?
But what I mean is, so when they're when my colleagues were saying, why don't you go to take them to school in England, for example, they're just assuming because all they meet. I tell you who they meet is middle class. That's all they meet. They just meet middle class British people like me.
Well, because of their immigration policy, they would.
Yeah. So that's all they meet. So the problem is, you see this, you get this. I don't know if I'm not sure if this has become an argument in Portugal, but in England, you'll have people say, "Well, my doctor was from Pakistan."
Yes.
And you don't like immigration. It's like, and this is the problem, what I was talking about before, where it's like I was saying that the right get accused of wanting no government, which is actually anarchy, and that's not what they want. The left get accused of wanting communism.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So this is what happens in the immigration law. So what I think people who are on the right want is controlled immigration. So I would
talk about what we want, because that's the problem, isn't it? When we talk about concepts and projections, I'm owning this. I'm owning my discomfort with this situation. I would like to believe in equal opportunity for people. Yeah, but I don't want to see disgusting behavior having moved to a culture that I really value. I don't want that disrupted. I think I play my part in that culture to be respectful and behave in a certain way that falls into line. There's room for improvement always, linguistically but I think I show that I am no threat to people, and I want to contribute to the local situation. And when I see video like I did there, and what's poignant about it as well, Tony, are the words that came with it. And it was a woman who posted it publicly on Facebook, and it's a translation from Portuguese, but she says, in Boils of the Queen, which is Caldas badly translated by Google, it's getting a panic. It's just sad because in the meantime, you can't walk restless on the street. I think that's probably relaxed in the streets. Very bad. Keep letting these people in. Call me what you want, as in call me what you want, mate. But as long as you give money to these who are all illegal business, keep going. Do you know the result? They come more and more to the point that meanwhile, they are dominating everything, hurting all the revolting people at the feet of our Queen, Ms. Leonor. Shameful. Now, that is at the foot of a monument. And I love how Portuguese people, there's a cultural reference there. This shows an absolute disregard for culture and history of Portugal, for these people to behaving the way they are, poetically, poignantly, under a historic royal monument. They're having their fight under a monument to a member of the royal family who is notable in Caldas. And you can feel the sadness in that comment, or I projected onto it. So what can be done? We can analyze what we think the left and the right.
Well, you have to chuck them out. If they're illegal, it's criminal. Do what Hong Kong does: build a big jail,
get rid,
and stick them in there, and you have to put a gate on, because otherwise you're inviting infinity immigration. It's that simple. If you're not putting a number on it and you're not coming up with a solution, there's a very good video people can check out about this, and it's called, I think it's called the Gumball. I'll see if I can find it. Gumball immigration or something like this. Gumball.
Keep talking into your mic, by the way, because this is interesting what you're saying. While you're finding that as well, I'll come to a few comments. I think these are
what he does. It's called Immigration and World Poverty Explained with Gumballs. And what people in the first world need to understand is there's billions of people in the world who live on like $5 a day, right? You can't have uncontrolled immigration from these places, or you will be overwhelmed. It's just a matter of time. And at the moment, we're offering infinity. We're not saying we're going to cap it, because there's no one is offering a solution.
In the EU nation states, as an EU policy, right?
The government, whatever, they're not offering any solution. So right now we're offering infinity. If you can get here on a boat, you can get here, and your life will be better. Yes. So for example, I see in England people say, "Oh, they're not 5-star hotels, a travel lodge," and I get this. There is exaggeration from that side. Travelodge was never a 5-star hotel, was it? But you know what? It's probably a lot better than a mud hut, or a shanty.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus you get some benefits. Plus you get food. Plus you warm in winter, And
And
plus,
you would do that, wouldn't you? If you had the chance to do that and improve your chances in the way you've just described, you probably would.
of course I would. Of course
Yes.
I would. I don't blame them for trying, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a crime to illegally enter a country, and
Yeah.
I think it has to stop.
Yes.
It has to stop. And
Yeah.
the only way to stop it is with immigration prisons, and then people can put their asylum claim in. Look, you can have them be very nice. You know, you can have which is how I understand it is in Hong Kong. I understand that inside the prison you know, they don't call it a prison, they call it an immigration
A holding center or something like that.
processing center or
Yes,
something.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, from the outside, I could see it because it was quite near where I used to live in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's near in Hong Kong, but you know, you could see it had the proper wall of the fence around it, and you know, people couldn't get out.
Yeah. Now, in Portugal, you don't have to come by boat. You can fly into Portugal and disappear and enjoy a different sort of lifestyle, can't you? I think that's what you're talking about, presumably, and the gumball effect. Yeah, I mean, that had never occurred to me before, but yeah, I think without a control, this phenomenon will only increase, right? Because who would
it will increase, and you can see it in the countries where it's been going on for longer.
Yes, who wouldn't want to move easily to a country you can move easily to improve your life? I mean, we would all do that, wouldn't we? Right, Brexit led to a massive increase. Let's have a look at a few comments on this then. Brexit led to a massive increase in immigration and small boats, so possibly staying in Europe is the answer to prevent uncontrolled immigration. Not entirely sure what that means. And when I was talking to somebody earlier on today, it was interesting. Why in UK would you go by boat if you could just fly in on Ryanair, for example? That's a very valid question, isn't it? And presumably a lot of the people who go by boat don't want to be tracked coming into an airport. Or is it because they come from a country
well the thing about it is what your conversation reveals that you haven't done a lot of investigation.
Because I haven't.
No, because most do come by plane. The vast majority overstay, or they're students.
In most countries where the immigration is happening,
including the UK.
Yeah, okay.
Like there's many that come in legally and then just stay.
Okay. A JMC says this will make the left to rethink itself. Islamic takeover? Nah. What happened in England won't happen in here. Well, do you think it's an Islamic takeover in England?
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
But you could go to a village in, I don't know, Northumberland, and there would be no sign of an Islamic takeover. What do you mean?
Well, not yet. Well, not yet. It's look. I've said this before, right? I don't. Again, I'm not a cultural relativist, and I'm not a religious relativist either. I'm broadly speaking, I'm a Christian, and I don't see why I should have to like things that I don't like. This bothers me. This bothers me. I think that's a kind of fascism that I get forced not to be able to criticize things. And I think that certain cultural values are incompatible with Western values. And that's not to say
and you think that should be
governed.
That should be governed by, of course, the government. They should represent that sentiment as an immigration policy.
They should represent the will and the cultural values of their
sovereigns, the people who are part of their culture, who pay their wages.
Yeah, but for years we've heard, and I think that most people accepted it at face value. If you go back 20 or 30 years ago, where people would say diversity is good for us, right? Diversity is good. Diversity is our strength. And then you realize that, well, actually, everything's been getting worse. We've been doing this for decades now, and everything's getting worse. So
is that not a bit of a straw man, though? Because you know, it's provable that diversity can help and is a good thing in philosophical terms.
Of course,
that doesn't mean it all is, right? Is that the point you're making? It's not all good.
It's not all. Yeah, it's not all types of diversity are good.
Yeah, well, it's good when it's good and it's bad when it's bad, right? Like everything.
Well, I think okay. Let's say if you had a house with 10 people in it,
yeah,
and it might be good to have 3 or 4 people in who aren't from the sort of main community in that house, let's say.
Yeah.
But what happens when 2 or 3 of them who are very, very good pals start really throwing their weight around? Do you know what I mean? And start wanting things their way. And
which is, but that is very human, isn't it? And you know, what's
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
about that,
I know what you want to do, Carl. You want to ignore the elephant in the room.
no,
There
no,
is
I'm not. I
in
wouldn't
my
have asked for this conversation
in
today.
my opinion, and I know it's uncomfortable for people, but in my opinion, there's a particular culture
Mhm.
that causes the majority of the problems, and that's not to say that in the West there are some parts of the culture that cause problems, but I don't see why if you've got problems, inviting more helps.
I know I'm not. The reason I'm having this conversation is to address the elephant in the room.
Mm.
What I think you're referring to, and what people find it difficult to talk about, is what is it called? Islamism or extreme Islamic
Yeah.
culture.
Well, why do we find it difficult to talk about?
Because it's been prosecuted, I suppose, as something that you shouldn't talk about, and is against the law to
Yeah,
talk
well,
about.
they've even made up a special word for it,
Yes. Okay.
haven't they? That other religions don't have.
Okay, but that, yeah, and that doesn't mean we can't have the conversation, though.
No, and I
And it
mean
means we should have the conversation. That's why we're having it today, right?
in the UK, it seems like even blasphemy laws are coming back.
For the just
Not
protect
for,
that, yeah.
yeah, just to protect one group.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Like
let's say
the other week there was a guy in Manchester who, and I almost don't want to say this because it annoys me that you have to say it. I wouldn't do it, but
you do this a lot. You have to do it.
A guy burnt a Quran.
Yeah.
On the street, and it was
Yeah.
his Quran, and
Yeah.
the police nicked him instead of the person that tried to stab him. They did end up. Sorry, it wasn't that no, because there was two incidents. One was in Manchester, one was in London. The one in London, a guy from one of the embassies ran out with a carving knife from the kitchen and tried to stab the guy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
That sounds like a classic GB News or Daily Mail story, doesn't it? It's perfectly positioned for maximum terror.
Of course it is, but it's also a real thing that happened.
Yes. Yeah. Fair enough. And there's a context to that, isn't there? You know, in the world I want to live in, I don't think burning a Quran is a really
I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. In the world I want to live in the world I live in, if you own something and you want to burn it, you go ahead and burn it.
Okay, but there is a big difference, isn't there, between burning a Bible and a Quran? You know, I would include anybody's holy and revered books. Why? What sort of world is that where people are burning each other's holy books? What's clever about that?
I don't know. I haven't gotten past the run out into the street and try to stab him bit.
Yeah, of course. But I'm not saying I want to live in a world where people don't get prosecuted for stabbing people, but they can burn each other's holy books, or can't burn each other's holy books. You know, there's a context to this, isn't there? And you have to look at the big picture rather than these cherry picking these little bits of it.
No, I don't.
No, you don't have to. But I choose to. To. Okay.
I'm not doing it because they're not in the same they're not in the same ball, whatever. They're so different in severity, and
no, of course the person trying to stab somebody should be prosecuted. I'm not suggesting they shouldn't be. And yeah, of course it's much worse than burning a book. But I did say, in an ideal world, I don't see the cleverness of burning other people's holy books. I just, you know, especially when it's about making a point. You've got to a pretty pass, as it were, haven't you? When you need to make the point of burning someone's book such that you might get stabbed to make a political point. You're already a long way down a slippery slope if that's what we've got to. And if that is where we've got to, it's terrible. It's awful. I agree with you.
Yeah, it is. But we are there.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest issue is the willingness to assimilate. The guy at the store down from my apartment doesn't speak a word of Portuguese, and he just shows you a calculator price for your goods, says Agrippa Maxentius. On the other hand, there are folks like my friend Adi from Pakistan, who's been here 10 years, fluent in Portuguese, goes out of his way to learn and appreciate the culture. Now, this is another angle on this, isn't it? Who are the elders? Who are the great representatives of the cultures that are trying to assimilate in Portugal? And how are they managing this? Because there's a big onus, isn't there, on that part of this, and why? And it's sad that that's quiet at the moment. So it's the same for us, isn't it? I don't mind calling out bad British behaviour, and we should, right, as in our,
Yeah.
in our sort of duty to become Portuguese
Yeah.
citizens. And I want to see all communities do that. And I do see an absence of that. Just generally, it's not a conversation that's being had, is it? The elders aren't stepping forward and saying we need to speak to each other from our different communities. We need to represent ourselves well. We need to talk to our people. And we need to manage our people in this new culture. There's a definite absence of that, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Well, I can give you an example of the problem.
Yeah.
Is that I think that among, let's say, British people in Portugal, I expect the people who are, necking 10 Stellas every night and going out fighting are a minority, a real minority.
Yes. And from that point of view, it would be no skin off anyone's nose to get rid of them.
Yeah, but just to give you an example, in the UK, something that happened recently was the grooming gangs. Everyone knows what the grooming gangs are, I think, by now. Now, in some of those towns, it's estimated that 20% of the men were involved in the grooming. 20%. Now, what that says to me is it's probably higher than 20%. I doubt they caught them all. Yeah. And it probably means that many, many other people who weren't doing the grooming knew about the grooming. And I've said before, I can't imagine, like, I'm not saying it's impossible and that it hasn't happened, but I can't imagine, if my mate Malcolm gave me a call and said, "Hey, Tony, listen, I've got this 15-year-old girl here and we've drugged her up and all the boys are coming around." You know what I mean? There's not enough. You don't know enough. It's not widespread enough in your community that can happen.
Yes.
So this is
and the point you're making is what they are not policing themselves. They have a different standard of behavior.
They have a different standard of behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
As a group, not all, but as a group, and it's just, you only have to apply rational thought. It can't be that every culture is exactly equal. It doesn't make sense.
No, and you, so as
a group. Yeah. So obviously, when we say what are British values, for example, we might say our Protestant work ethic, but we all know some very lazy fuckers in England. You know what I mean?
Yes. But generally speaking, okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's a generality. Japanese people are very polite.
Okay, well, there's a comment about that. Let's look at a few of these comments because they're very good. Sorry to overlook you, Pete, as I have done so far, but these are some interesting comments from many of you here. Good evening, Jackie. Pete is saying St. Patrick's Day is celebrated everywhere at all sorts of times. It's hard to find a country without an Irish pub. This is a clash. This is a clash between them. Imagine, God forbid, if suddenly Brits and Irish clashed again over here. What would we do? Well, I remember seeing a tourist, and he looked British to me, and he was having a pee against a GNR van, and the GNR officer got out, took out his truncheon, and gave the guy a whack. And I thought, excellent, brilliant. Yeah. I wasn't thinking this is really unfair to us British tourists. I was thinking that idiot deserved that, and he's gone on his way, knowing that is not acceptable behaviour here.
And he couldn't do that. He couldn't do that in the UK anymore.
What, he could pee on a police van?
Yeah, but he wouldn't get the truncheon.
I think he could get inside and have a pee in the police van in the UK, according to the news sources we have. Tony, Portugal. Now this is what comes up, doesn't it, in this conversation? Portugal. Thanks, Pete, for this. Portugal desperately needs immigration. Preventing immigration would be a disaster and impossible given the borders. Now, you're not talking about stopping immigration, are you? We're talking about quality here, aren't we? And we're talking about the elephant in the room, if we like, which is the type of people we want to share this lifestyle with, right? Yeah.
Well, when I don't know about you, but when I came to Portugal, I had to show them that I actually had a bag of cash. I had to show them some amount of cash. I can't remember what it was.
It does sound gangster. It does sound very mafia.
Yeah. So I had cash, and because I didn't want to show them my other stuff.
Your Bitcoin.
Right. No, but this is what I was suggesting.
I won't draw you out on that.
This was suggested as a way, and they were happy with that. But the thing is, I had to show them. I had to show them my duty frees. You know what I mean? I had to show them the cash. I had to show them that I was a Brit. I had to show them. I can't remember. You know, you have to show
pre-Brexit then? Did you do it? You've done a
just
visa?
before.
Okay, yeah, all right.
3
Right.
months. I mean, October.
You see,
December.
the interesting thing about the quirk that has allowed some of us Brits to be here is an age-old association, isn't it? The reciprocal rights. Now that's based on cultural appreciation, isn't it? And a long-standing agreement based on mutual aid between the countries, which is a very interesting basis for that's survived to this day, that has made it possible for us to be here. Right, having visited Japan, there is an example of a dying culture that encourages a high suicide and low birth rate. The one city I could never live in is Tokyo. Happy to be a tourist, but not live there by the sound of it. Japanese hate the Chinese, and especially those from Hong Kong, whom, when we spoke to our Japanese friends, said they were arrogant, inconsiderate, and dirty. That's a bit racist. Okay, yeah, we've already.
Well, yeah, you know, this is the thing, and I'm sure anyone who's I didn't know that it's Council House and Violence, probably is unaware.
It's one acronym for it, isn't it? Yeah,
but one thing, as someone who has travelled a lot, I think probably more than the average person. Whenever I hear people talking about racism in Western cultures, I say, yeah, go to Asia.
Oh, yeah,
Asia. You want to see racism. You
Nothing casual about it.
You see adverts on TV where a woman puts a black man in a washing machine and he comes out a handsome Chinese guy, or
seriously,
or they get something stuck up a tree, so they grab a black guy and send him up the tree to get it.
Right.
You know,
okay,
where black people are literally called black monsters in Chinese.
We have. You could say we've come a long way in Europe. Well, more or less controlled. It must suddenly you can do no wrong. Which previously he said everything you thought was wrong. Now you've pivoted in his mind. It must be a past that doesn't overwhelm the country like it is. Now, JMC, tell us: are more and more people feeling
infinity immigration? Yeah.
Portuguese people, is this a thing then? People are feeling like they're being overwhelmed. Can we get a sense of that? Because it's difficult for me and Tony, I think, to be fair, isn't it, to get a real sense of what Portuguese.
Well, not really. I can see it happening in Oliveira already. We've already started to notice it here as well, even in the middle of Portugal. Yeah.
All right. Another huge issue is the immigration issue increases the price of rental and homes because they're happy to fit 10 or 15 people into a T1 to say both ends. So the wealthy expats get blamed for putting the prices up. And there is a particular way of life, isn't there, for immigrants coming into a new country where they're prepared to work with conditions that the residents, the work the residents won't do, and the lifestyle residents won't put up with anymore, which is what I think you're talking about there, Agrippa. We just set free Templars on them again. Go fetch, woof woof. That's not helpful.
Templars are turning in their grave, my friend.
That's not very helpful right now. It's a different age we're living in. Tony for president suddenly. Hooray. Here, please have free reign. You see, this is what I'm hoping for in Caldas de Rainha. When they see that video, I do want the police of Caldas de Rainha to tool up, get their GNR riot gear on, and push back and show the people who behave like that. This is not welcome in this city.
Can I share a little anecdote? It's something I'm not proud of, but it's.
I think I know the one you're going to share. Yes.
Is it about the police?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened. I was quite young, and I was in Sydney, and I was
the city, not the person.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be a better memory.
It was the same night.
That would be a better memory. Yeah, but I'm ashamed to say I was very, very drunk, and I was trying to get a taxi, and I was in the middle of the road, and I got to a point where I was so annoyed that they wouldn't stop for me. And when I look back, I wouldn't have stopped for me. I was in a right state, and I started kicking the taxis. I started kicking them, trying to get them to stop. And then suddenly I heard a little siren. I looked up, and it was like a kind of a Jeep with a box on the back, police car, you know. And they got out and just grabbed me, opened the back, and
Scruff of the neck.
Chucked me in. They took me to kind of the outskirts of the CBD. Outskirts of the CBD, opened the door, pulled me out, gave me a bit of a kicking. Gave me a bit of a kicking, and then told me to fuck off and don't let us see you in the CBD again tonight.
How about that?
Now, the funny thing about it is, all my life I've remembered that, and I thought,
Yeah.
now imagine what kind of trajectory my life could be on if I'd have been arrested for maliciously damaging taxis.
Yeah, or if you got your way through inappropriate behaviour.
Well, to be fair, I have got my inappropriate behaviour a few times,
sorry, that was a silly thing to say.
but having the criminal record, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So on balance, because I've had quite a lot of jobs through the years where I might not have been able to have.
Yeah, right.
But
But
criminal
that
record,
little
right?
bit of summary justice there, old school, did you the world a good and did the world some good. by the sound of it.
Yeah, and I felt bad about it. Like the next day, I remembered it. I mean, and I felt bad about what I'd done. I felt embarrassed. You know what I mean? And I felt like that. I felt like I deserved it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, and that's a great story to share. I think that's educational, illuminating, and valuable, and perhaps a reminder of old policing styles that are quite helpful. And it's good to know, JMC, that you think the police here have free range for the advanced behavior corrective measures that I hope those gentlemen, and I use the term loosely, will have meted out upon them. Any other wrongdoers who challenge this beautiful culture, which we're great fans of, quite frankly. The issue now, then, I think there's a consensus, isn't there? It's like the awkward conversation is, yeah, we're not saying people shouldn't come. We're not saying everyone should be kicked out. It's like, can we have a quality conversation here, or a conversation about quality of people and anyone challenging the delicate and beautiful status quo that we've come to appreciate here. The issue is now how it is controlled, and the fact that anyone listening could be detained on visiting the US if unfavorable comments are made of the current leadership. Do you believe that, Tony? Or is that leftist propaganda?
I don't believe any of this stuff anymore, to be honest.
Any of this stuff? Anything that's said about Trump that you don't agree with?
Well, I don't believe a lot of the stuff that I agree with about Trump. I think it's so much nonsense, to be honest, on all sides. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt. And the difference is, mate, here's the thing, right? The thing that happened in Caldas really affects my life. And I'm sorry to sound NIMBY and, like selfish, but actually I do want a decent. I'd moved here for a quality of life that I really appreciate.
One of the things on my pros list was safety. Another one was culture. Yeah. So what's the point of being here if the culture gets
absolutely
destroyed, and the safety gets undermined?
Yeah. Colm McKinley. I think we can guess where you're from, Colm. Back in the day when a bobby could boot your ass to teach you the error of your ways.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, I've seen some videos now on YouTube. I know they always probably pick on the smallest one, but I've seen some videos on YouTube of like the police officers now, they're quite often tiny, you know what I mean? Whereas when I was a kid, and I've noticed that in Portugal, all the GNRs seem to be big guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're proud of themselves, aren't they? They're proud of that they can dish it out.
And they should be. They because otherwise they're not really a threat. And also, if you're a vulnerable person, you want to feel like you don't want like a 5 foot. No disrespect to 5 foot men, okay, but you don't want a 5 foot guy or a 5 foot woman for that matter as a police officer, do you? It doesn't make any sense.
I think it should start a bit awkward. And my experience of the GNR is it does start awkward, and that's good. And then if you reciprocate in a respectful way, it often ends well. Even if you do get fined 80 euros or whatever. But my experiences with the GNR have been, once that formality is over and it's begun with like, let's bring everyone into the present moment with a sense of my authority here. It can end well. It can end in an amusing way when everyone feels safe with what's going on. But I've no objection to it starting in that threatening, awkward way that you described there, I think, Tony. And long term, yeah. But Brits learn the hard way not to mess with the police in the Algarve. Well, I hope so. I really hope so. Good. Couldn't join. Dogs rolled it into human feces. Where did they find that? I wonder. You should maybe not let them in your bathroom. Freedom. And what would you say, Tony? Would you have wanted to listen to our show or wash human feces off your dogs as a sort of comparison this evening?
I don't know. I took that as he was saying Oh no, I took that a completely different way. I think you're right now. I think you're right. I thought he was saying he couldn't. I thought he was saying he couldn't join the police because, in his opinion, they are dogs rather
Oh, I
than
see.
human
No, I
species.
couldn't join. No, not
And
at all.
I was trying to think what I could.
Right. Okay.
What I could say to
Well,
that.
it's quite a
Some
good note to end on. Here we are saying this is a culture we love, and even in the countryside, village men poop in nature. Good for them, unless your dog rolls in it. Couldn't join the live stream, not the police force.
Ah, the live
Tony,
stream, yeah.
anything else interesting happened to you this week?
Well, not really, but I do have what may well be a life hack, which is I've had a lot of stuff in storage since I've been in Portugal, and the other day I pulled out one of my old suits.
So hold on a minute. You've had a lot of stuff in storage. This might be a life hack. And the other day you got one of your suits.
Yeah, I pulled one of my suits out because I've got to wear a suit to a thing in a couple of weeks.
Court case.
And court case, yeah.
Okay.
And as the defendant, you know. But
he's joking. I think he's joking.
I'm
joking. Anyway, so there you are. You pulled your suit out of storage.
And of course it's been in storage for years, so it's like kind of moldy, and do you know what I mean?
Nice.
It's kind of like really
aroma,
nice.
aroma.
I took it up to it's pretty manky. I took it to the dry cleaners here in Ollie, and they wanted €30
to clean your whistle and flute.
Yeah, to clean my suit. And I took it like it's a nice suit, but it's Marks and Spencer's. You know, it probably costs £200 or something. And I thought maybe I'll just treat myself to a new one. And in Oliveira, they've got a charity shop. So I thought, bugger it. And I went there. So I know it's a bit moldy, but here, have that. You know, all yours. Now, the funny thing was, about 3 days later, I was walking past the charity shop, and there it was, there it was in the window, pressed and cleaned, €5. So,
Munson and the Geeza. Munson and the Geeza. Reporting from the scene. Munson and the Geeza. News in every ride.